So, um, in a normal academic setting, the worst case scenario for like failing an exam is academic probation.
Right, or maybe just a really stern meeting with a guidance counselor.
Exactly. But I want you to imagine an educational landscape where a failing grade literally means spontaneous incineration.
Yeah, it's a bit of a step up.
Just a little bit. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Today we are looking at an environment that is the absolute definition of a brutal, unforgiving meritocracy.
And we're taking you right into the center of it. We are focusing on a monumental turning point in Rebecca Yarros' romantasy phenomenon, Fourth Wing.
Specifically, we're zeroing in on the narrative crucible that spans chapters 11 through 20.
Right, and for those of you who've been following the geopolitical nightmares and the high-altitude terror of the Basgiath War College...
Which, honestly, is terrifying.
It really is. But, this is where the foundation that was laid in the early chapters either hardens into steel or, well, shatters completely.
Okay, let's unpack this, because our mission today is to dissect Violet Sorrengail's transition.
Which is massive.
It is. She goes from a physically compromised, totally overlooked cadet to a bonded dragon rider holding just unprecedented magical power.
And to do this, we're going to synthesize a massive stack of sources.
Oh yeah, we've got detailed chapter recaps, deep character analyses, world-building guides.
Not to mention critical reviews from outlets like Rated Reads and the Fantasy Review.
Right, we want to understand the underlying mechanics of this world. Things like the jurisprudence of the Riders Codex.
And the biological trap of the dragon mating bonds, which is fascinating.
So fascinating. And, of course, the deeply unsettling psychology of Navarian military propaganda.
Yeah, so to truly analyze the dragon's choices during threshing, we actually have to look backward first.
Right, at the psychological and physical baseline Violet establishes in the weeks prior to that.
Exactly. Chapters 4 through 12 are often categorized as a standard, training montage.
Cue the 80s music. Right?
Yeah, exactly. But if you apply a military history lens to it, it is actually a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare.
Oh, absolutely. Violet is placed in a lethal environment with a really profound physical disadvantage.
And we shouldn't gloss over the severity of that disadvantage.
No, we definitely shouldn't. The author has explicitly noted that Violet's physical condition, her easily dislocated joints, her fragile ligaments.
Those brittle bones.
Yeah, all of that is rooted in Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a real-world connective tissue disorder.
Right. So when we talk about her surviving the Riders Quadrant, we aren't just talking about a scribe who hasn't lifted weights.
Not at all. We're talking about a cadet whose fundamental biomechanics are just completely incompatible with the G-forces of riding a dragon.
Let alone the blunt force trauma of the sparring mat.
Which is brutal.
Yeah.
So that forces a radical adaptation on her part.
It does. In an environment where she literally cannot survive a frontal physical assault, she has to weaponize her scribe training.
And the scribes, for those who need a quick refresher, are the historians. They're the keepers of Navarian law.
The analysts, basically.
Exactly. And Violet takes that analytical framework and just applies it directly to immediate lethal survival.
I mean, I want to look closely at the battle briefs here, because that's where this cognitive shift really crystallizes.
Oh, the strategy classes. Yeah.
Right. The cadets are sitting in these classes, listening to the professors discuss recent attacks by griffin flyers from the neighboring kingdom of Poramel.
And the rest of the cadets are acting like, I don't know, stenographers.
Yeah, just mindlessly absorbing the official military line.
But Violet uses her historical and geographical knowledge to spot a massive anomaly.
Exactly. She looks at the supply lines and the target locations, and she puts it together.
She correctly deduces that the Griffin Riders aren't executing random raids at all.
Right. They are launching highly specific, targeted strikes.
Which heavily suggests that Navarre's magical protective wards are failing.
And those wards are the absolute cornerstone of their national security.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
If a first-year cadet can spot the deterioration of the national defense infrastructure just by looking at a map,
right,
then the Navarian generals must know the wards are failing.
Oh, absolutely. They have to know.
So why are they lying to their own military recruits? I mean, it implies that the military apparatus is far more concerned with information control than, actual strategic preparation.
Yeah, and that is the concept of epistemic survival. It really becomes the defining theme of Violet's journey.
It makes sense. I mean, Navarre is a heavily propagandized state.
The generals aren't just teaching tactics, they're enforcing a really rigid, unshakable narrative about who the enemy is.
And why Navarre is supposedly impenetrable.
Right. So Violet's ability to pierce that propaganda using just pure logic proves she possesses the mind of a high-level commander.
She is analyzing not just the enemy's motives, but the actual omissions in her own government's intelligence reports.
Exactly. And she applies that exact same ruthless, analytical rigor to her personal survival, too.
Let's talk about the sparring mat, because this is where it gets really tactical.
Oh, it's brilliant. She is scheduled to fight cadets who can, easily snap her neck.
So what does she do? She uses the survival journal written by her late brother, Brennan.
Right, to crack the algorithmic rotation of the sparring schedule.
It's so smart. She maps out exactly who she will fight ahead of time.
And then she just goes foraging for toxic berries.
She literally crushes them up and sneaks them onto her opponent's food,
incapacitating them with severe gastrointestinal distress before they even step onto the mat.
Like Oren Seifert. He is violently vomiting, and Violet just taps him and wins.
It is chemical warfare on a micro scale.
It really is. But I have to ask, is it leadership?
Well, what do you mean?
If we look at the governing philosophy of Basgiath, the dragons are supposed to value honor and courage.
True.
If you were a small guerrilla force facing a heavily armored conventional army, sure, you poison their water supply.
Right, that's tactical asymmetrical warfare.
But in the context of an academy that prizes martial dominance, is poisoning your classmates a sign of tactical brilliance?
Or is it a cowardly evasion that the dragons will ultimately reject? That's the question.
Yeah. How do the dragons view that?
Well, the leadership at Basgiath actually tacitly approves of her cunning because it achieves the ultimate objective, which is survival.
Ah, okay, so survival trumps traditional honor.
You have to remember that honor in the Riders Quadrant is entirely outcome dependent.
That makes sense. I mean, the establishment doesn't intervene when she poisons her peers.
Exactly. The underlying lesson is that if your opponent is foolish enough to leave their food unguarded in a quadrant where murder is a daily occurrence,
then they lack the situational awareness required of a rider.
Precisely. It's on them.
Wow. Okay, so that moral flexibility gets tested to its absolute limit during the gauntlet.
Oh, the gauntlet is terrifying.
For those of you visualizing this, the gauntlet is this massive, towering, vertical obstacle course.
It's designed to test the exact biomechanics required to stay on a dragon in mid-flight.
Grip strength, balance, sheer vertical momentum.
And for Violet, with her height and her connective tissue issues,
spanning the gap on the final obstacle the correct way is literally physically impossible.
Gravity is the one enemy she cannot poison.
Oof. Yeah. And this is violently underscored when her squad mate, Arlie, falls to her death during a practice run.
Which is just awful. It shatters any illusion of a safety net for the listener and the characters.
So when the final test arrives, Violet has to leverage the environment.
She uses a dagger. She wedges it into the structure of the gauntlet to create a completely unauthorized handhold.
Totally bypassing the intended physical mechanism of the test.
Right. And Amber Mavis, who is the wing leader of the third wing, immediately tries to throw the book at her.
She is furious. She demands Violet be disqualified.
Which, in this world, essentially means execution.
And how does Violet respond? Because she doesn't beg.
No, she recites the Writer's Codex.
She uses her legal knowledge to prove that her method, while highly unorthodox, didn't technically violate a single written rule.
It's amazing. This is a profound power shift. Amber Mavis represents the rigid physical orthodoxy of the military hierarchy.
And Violet represents legalism and adaptability.
Right. By beating a wing leader with jurisprudence, Violet proves that intellectual mastery of the system is a valid substitute for physical dominance.
She survives because she understands the architecture of the rules better than the people enforcing them.
Which is just a massive flex.
It really is. Which brings us to the ultimate crucible, October 1st.
Presentation Day, the threshing.
This is wild. You have approximately 100 dragons willing to bond and roughly 160 cadets.
It's a terrifying game of musical chairs.
Right, where the penalty for not finding a seat is remaining a permanent, unbonded target in a quadrant full of heavily armed, magical killers.
The math alone is designed to manufacture desperation.
But the manufactured scarcity is the point, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The dragons utilize this demographic imbalance to observe how the humans behave under the ultimate pressure.
It strips away all the pretense.
It really does, and it is in this environment of absolute desperation that we see the golden feathertail enter the field.
Right. It's this small, seemingly vulnerable dragon.
And immediately the most brutal cadets, Jack Barlow, Tynan, Orin, decide they're going to murder it.
Which is just so twisted. They justify it by claiming the small dragon is a weak link that will compromise the wing's lethality.
We really need to analyze Jack Barlow's psychology here.
Yeah, let's get into it.
His desire to cull the golden dragon is a direct projection of the fascist ideology the human leadership subtly encourages.
Barlow essentially believes that strength is defined solely by the capacity for violence.
And that weakness is a contagion that just has to be excised.
And this is where Violet's entire survival paradigm completely shifts.
Up until this exact second, every choice she has made, studying maps, poisoning opponents, finding loopholes, has been driven by intense self-preservation.
But she watches these massive cadets advance on the defenseless dragon, and she just abandons her strategy entirely.
She throws herself right between the killers and the dragon.
She stabs Tynan. She takes brutal physical hits. Her joints are screaming, but she holds the line.
It fundamentally redefines her character arc.
It proves that her reliance on loopholes and poisons was not born of cowardice.
Exactly. It was born of physical necessity. When the moral stakes are absolute, she is willing to engage in a doomed, frontal, physical assault to protect the vulnerable.
Which demonstrates the exact intrinsic courage that the dragons actually value.
Right, because the dragons operate on a vastly different moral axis than the human instructors.
I am so glad you brought up the dragon's moral axis, because the validation of Violet's choice here is the most geopolitical earthquake of a moment in the entire book.
Oh, it changes everything.
Kynan is about to execute Violet, and the sky literally goes dark. Tairn lands.
The black dragon.
Yes. And he doesn't just intervene. He instantly incinerates Tynan.
Just poof, gone.
We all know Tairn's arrival completely disrupts the threshing, but the true brilliance of this scene is how Yarros uses Tairn's specific history.
Right, to instantly anchor Violet to the broader rebellion.
Let's break that down.
Okay, so Tairn is one of only 2 massive Morningstar-tail black dragons on the continent.
But his political weight is actually far heavier than his physical size.
Exactly. Tairn's last rider was Naolin. And Naolin died 5 years ago, burning himself out trying to siphon enough magic to resurrect Violet's older brother, Brennan.
Right, during the Tyrish rebellion.
Yeah.
And Tairn nearly died from the severing of that bond.
So you have to think about the staggering implications of that choice.
The human military leadership of Navarre just watched the most powerful, unbonded asset in their arsenal emerge from a 5-year grieving period.
Just to intentionally select the sister of the rebel sympathizer his last rider died for.
It is an enormous, silent rebuke of the Navarian military elite.
Tairn tells Violet he chose her for her mind and her courage, but politically, it's a massive middle finger to the generals.
It undeniably compromises the human chain of command.
It does. But the paradigm is shattered entirely when a second voice enters Violet's mind.
Oh man. The golden feathertail and Andarna.
2 dragons bonding a single rider.
Which has literally never happened in recorded Navarian history.
Never. And this is where the world building shifts from political intrigue to raw, volatile magic.
We have to ask, what is the actual biological secret of the feathertails? And why is the human leadership utterly terrified by this double bond?
Okay, so feathertails are not a subspecies. They are juvenile dragons.
They are essentially toddlers.
Right. And the human leadership is terrified because juvenile dragons have not yet stabilized their magic.
Adult dragons, like Tairn, act as a conduit. They safely channel their magic into their human rider.
Which manifests as a specific signet power, but juvenile dragons cannot channel.
They just accidentally gift their raw, unfiltered, unpredictable power directly to the human.
Which means Violet doesn't just get a signet, she gets a direct injection of raw chronomancy.
Andarna gives her the ability to stop time.
Yes, localized time manipulation.
But from a physics and biological standpoint, the toll on Violet's body is astronomical.
She is already suffering from a severe connective tissue disorder. Stopping time requires an immense expenditure of energy.
It practically drains her cellular reserves in seconds.
It isn't a superpower she can just spam like in a video game. It is a desperate, physically ruinous failsafe.
And she needs that failsafe immediately, because bonding the black dragon didn't actually make her safe.
Not at all.
It made her the most valuable and therefore the most hunted asset in the entire quadrant.
Which leads directly to the midnight assassination attempt.
So scary. A group of unbonded cadets bypass the wards and break into her room to murder her in her sleep.
Now, the rules of Basgiath allow killing on the sparring mat. That's accepted. But a midnight home invasion.
It is a profound violation of the Codex.
It crosses the line from institutionalized meritocracy into outright anarchy.
Orin is literally inches away from slitting her throat.
Yeah.
And Violet instinctively triggers Andarna's gift.
She freezes time.
The air thickens, the assassins are suspended mid-strike, and Violet has just enough time to physically move her fragile body out of the lethal trajectory.
Just before the temporal freeze collapses and Xaden Rierson bursts through the door.
Xaden, acting as the wing leader of the Fourth Wing, immediately assesses the situation and executes the assassins.
It's a brutal enforcement of quadrant law.
But I want to pause and look at the aftermath of this event, because it triggers a major constitutional crisis between the humans and the dragons.
The human generals are furious about the double bond and the chaos it is causing, so they attempt to intervene. They want to regulate Violet.
And the Empyrean, the Dragon Leadership Council, essentially issues a cease and desist.
They invoke sovereign immunity. The dragons inform the human military that the affairs of dragons, including who they bond and how many they bond, are exclusively the jurisdiction of the Empyrean.
It completely shatters the illusion of human control.
The generals realize they do not command the dragons, they are merely permitted to ride them.
Let's shift the lens a bit to how this unprecedented rise in power isolates Violet from her human support systems.
Because becoming the rider of two dragons fundamentally rewrites her relationships.
Especially with the figures who represent her past. Let's start with her mother, General Lilith Sorrengail.
Lilith is a masterclass in Machiavellian ambiguity.
Truly. She forced a daughter with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome into a quadrant with a staggering mortality rate.
She publicly disavows her. On the surface, it reads as clinical abuse.
But I look at it differently. We discussed epistemic survival earlier. The idea that the military is hiding a massive intelligence failure regarding the wards.
Right.
What if Lilith knows the wards are failing? What if she knows a continental war is imminent and the scribe quadrant, the library, is going to be the first place to burn?
That's a terrifying thought. If Lilith had allowed Violet to remain a scribe, Violet never bonds Tairn.
She never gets the power to stop time.
By subjecting her daughter to horrific trauma, Lilith inadvertently or perhaps intentionally forged the only weapon capable of surviving what is coming.
It introduces the terrifying concept of utilitarian parenting.
Is Lilith a callous general prioritizing the military machine, or a mother making a monstrous calculation to ensure her child isn't defenseless in an impending apocalypse?
The text keeps her motive shrouded, but the outcome is undeniable. Violet is now a lethal force.
Contrast that ruthless pragmatism with Dane Adetz.
Oh, Dane. Dane is her childhood best friend, a second-year squad leader. Initially, he presents as her only ally.
But his brand of protection is toxic stasis.
Dane is psychologically anchored to the scribe quadrant version of Violet. He cannot integrate the new data.
Every time Violet achieves something impossible, surviving the parapet, conquering the gauntlet, bonding the most powerful dragon in a century,
Dane views it as a fluke that just delays her inevitable death.
he constantly attempts to subvert her agency, urging her to flee, to hide, to quit.
It all comes to a head after the threshing. Violet has bonded two dragons, she has taken a life, she has survived a gauntlet of horrors, and Dane finally kisses her.
It's a culmination of years of childhood pining.
And Violet feels absolutely nothing. The romantic spark is dead on arrival.
And why is that? It's because Dane is kissing a ghost.
He is projecting his romantic affection onto a fragile girl who ceased to exist the moment she stepped onto the parapet.
Violet has undergone profound ontological shock. Her very state of being has changed.
Exactly. But the true death blow to their relationship isn't the lack of chemistry. It's the fallout over Amber Mavis following the midnight assassination attempt.
Violet tells Dane that Amber Mavis, a wing leader, deliberately allowed the assassins into Violet's room.
Violet has eyewitness testimony, and Dane, her oldest friend, flat out refuses to believe her.
He defaults to institutional hierarchy. A wing leader outranks a first-year cadet. Therefore, the wing leader must be innocent.
But he doesn't just call her a liar. He demands to use his signet on her.
Dane's magical ability allows him to read recent memories, but it requires physical contact with the subject's temples.
He asks to digitally search her brain to verify her testimony.
It is a profound violation of cognitive privacy. It's the magical equivalent of an unwarranted search and seizure.
By asking to read her mind, Dain explicitly declares that his loyalty to the military hierarchy supersedes his foundational trust in her.
He requires empirical, magical proof to validate her lived experience.
Violet recoils in horror, and rightly so. Ultimately, Tairn bypasses Dain entirely, projecting Violet's memories into the minds of the leadership assembly.
Amber Mavis is executed by her own dragon for violating the Codex.
But Dain's demand permanently severs their emotional tether. He proves he is an agent of the state first and a friend second.
Which creates a massive psychological vacuum. And stepping into that vacuum is Xaden Rierson,
The son of the great betrayer, the man whose father was executed by Violet's mother.
If Dain represents toxic stasis, Xaden represents forced evolution.
But their dynamic is complicated by a massive, inescapable biological trap. Let's break down the mechanics of the dragon mating bond.
It is Yarros' most brilliant world-building mechanic. Tairn, Violet's black dragon, is mated to Sgaeyl, the vicious navy blue dragon.
And Sgaeyl is bonded to Xaden Rierson.
In dragon lore, mated pairs share an unbreakable biological and magical tether. If one dies, the psychic severing is so catastrophic that the other will inevitably die of grief.
Furthermore, if a human rider dies, their dragon dies.
It creates a daisy chain of mortality.
If Violet slips on the stairs and breaks her neck, Tairn dies.
If Tairn dies, Sgaeyl dies.
If Sgaeyl dies, Xaden dies.
So Xaden, who has every political and personal motivation to want the Sorrengail bloodline extinguished, is suddenly held biologically hostage by Violet's survival.
He is magically tethered to his worst enemy.
This forced proximity necessitates a radical shift in their relationship. Xaden personally takes over her combat training.
And his pedagogical approach is the exact inverse of Dain's.
If Dain wanted to put Violet in a glass box to protect her, Xaden recognizes that the glass box is already surrounded by assassins.
His strategy is to hand her a hammer and teach her how to shatter the glass herself.
He strips away her scribe morality. He nicknames her violence, which sounds like an insult at first.
But is actually a profound mark of respect. He is acknowledging her lethality.
During a training session, he confronts her about her actions during the midnight assassination. She froze time, but she only used the pause to dodge.
She didn't strike to kill.
Xaden diagnoses her hesitation perfectly. He warns her that a defensive posture in a war zone is a delayed suicide.
He demands she embrace the reality of being a rider, which requires the capacity for preemptive, lethal violence.
He is cultivating her autonomy, driven initially by magical necessity, but it rapidly evolves into genuine respect for her intellect and iron will.
But let's talk about the psychological side effects of this biological tether, because this heavily impacts the pacing and the critical reception of the novel.
Dragons are intensely emotional, primal creatures, and those emotions bleed down the bond into their human riders.
When Tairn and Sgaeyl are physically intimate, those massive waves of draconic lust and connection ripple directly into Violet's and Xaden's nervous systems.
It creates a fascinating scenario of emotional contamination.
It heavily blurs the line between authentic human attraction and magically induced physiological arousal.
It's the ultimate complication for an enemies-to-lovers narrative.
Violet is constantly interrogating her own bodily responses. Am I feeling my heart race because I am genuinely attracted to the son of a rebel? Or is my nervous system just hijacking a dragon's mating instinct?
It forces a misattribution of arousal. The constant proximity, the shared combat training, the adrenaline of near-death experiences.
All of these heightened physiological responses that the brain easily misinterprets, or perhaps accurately interprets, as romantic attraction.
It accelerates the intimacy at an exponential rate.
Which brings us to the critical analysis of the pacing. If you read the reviews in the Fantasy Review or Rated Reads, they constantly use words like addictive, drug-like, and a relentless uprise of action.
There is a literal content warning at the front of the book for graphic violence. You have the parapet, the gauntlet threshing, midnight assassinations, and brutal sparring matches stacked back to back.
The criticism often leveled against Romantasy is that the plot moves too fast for genuine emotional development.
But in Fourth Wing, the trauma is the crucible for development. In the Basgiath War College, there is no temporal space for slow-burn emotional processing.
You don't get to go on 3 coffee dates to figure out if someone is trustworthy.
You find out if someone is trustworthy when they either hold the door for the assassins or they execute the assassins in your hallway.
The environmental pressure cooks the relationships at high heat. When Xaden kills the men trying to murder Violet, it establishes a deeper bedrock of trust in 3 seconds than Dain established in 3 years of polite conversation.
The sheer volume of shared trauma strips away societal pretenses, forcing the characters to expose their raw, authentic selves instantly.
By the end of this 10-chapter block, the metamorphosis is staggering.
Violet Sorrengail has transitioned from a physically compromised historian analyzing old maps to the bonded rider of two extraordinary dragons.
She has navigated political assassination, severed ties with the rigid institutionalism of her past, represented by Dane, and aligned herself with the chaotic, highly lethal future, represented by Xaden.
She hasn't just survived the meritocracy, she has fundamentally compromised its hierarchy.
She is wielding a legal and magical power that terrifies the very generals who built the school.
Yet, despite this massive accumulation of power, she is still operating on a chessboard where she cannot see the opponent's back row.
Which is the perfect place to leave you with our final thought for today's deep dive. We discussed epistemic survival, the idea that the military is actively suppressing intelligence about the failing wards.
Violet grew up in the archives. She implicitly trusts written Empyrean history.
But if history is truly written by the victors like her mother, who order the execution of the rebellion leaders, how much of that archive is actually state-sponsored fiction?
If the Empyrean is hiding the true nature of juvenile feathertails, what other massive magical realities are being suppressed?
Exactly. If Xaden and his marked ones, the children of the executed rebels, are holding secret, unsanctioned meetings in the shadows of the college, what intelligence do they possess that the scribes do not?
If the wards are truly failing, is the kingdom of Poromil the actual threat, or are they just the scapegoat for a much older, darker enemy returning to the continent?
I want you to consider how much of Violet's entire worldview, her entire education, has been a carefully constructed geopolitical lie.
The transition from scribe to writer was merely the physical survival. The real war will be cognitive.
And on that massive paradigm shift, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the Basgiath War College. Thank you so much for exploring this incredible turning point with us.
Keep questioning the narratives you are handed and keep looking for the loopholes in the codex.
And we see you next time as we continue our descent into the archives.